This is a day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. It's raining. The weather has cooled down. I know that because I had to turn the heater on in my house and I'm wearing a long sleeve shirt. It is good to have everybody here this morning. Just a minute. Oh, I just moved it, didn't I? Thank you. It's good to have everybody here this morning, especially our visitors. It's good to have you here. We're going to start a new study this morning. I hope to make it last out to 4 weeks, but we'll see how it goes. I'm thinking to do that, just a chapter a week. I know this little carcass in the picture might be a little disturbing to some, but it is influential in our study that we're going to get started today. And it's a hint as to what we're going to be studying about. Yeah, it's kind of gross and it's kind of hard to make out. But if you can't get who the study is going to be about, let me give you a riddle. Out of the eater came something to eat, and out of the strong came something sweet. This is a carcass of a lion. And hopefully that gave it away on what we're going to be studying. This is about Samson. And the riddle Samson gave the men at his wedding feast. And of course, the answer is what is sweeter than honey and what is stronger than a lion. We're going to be reading the story of Samson over the next 4 weeks and see what made him who he was. So please turn in your Bibles in the Old Testament to the book of Judges. Today we'll be looking at chapter 13, next week 14, and then 15 and 16. And that's all there is in the Bible, except for one other verse that we're going to look at today, dealing with Samson. In Judges 13, verse 1, again, the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord delivered them into the hand of the Philistines for 40 years. The children of Israel should be getting used to this 40-year thing, don't you think? They wandered in the desert for 40 years, and here they're being taken over by the Philistines for 40 years. And this is not the first time that the Israelites have done evil. This is actually the 7th time in just Judges alone that they've done evil. In Judges 2, verse 11, then the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord and served the Baals. Judges 3:7. So the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord. They forgot the Lord their God and served the Baals and the Asherahs. How can the children of Israel totally forget their God? When I read that, and it's just like, I just don't comprehend it. I can see them stumbling and everything. I don't understand them going and serving or offering offers to, to idols and everything else. But to totally forget who their God was, it's just beyond me. Drop down just 5 more verses to 3:12. And the children of Israel again did evil in the sight of the Lord. So the Lord strengthened Eglon, king of Moab, against Israel, because they had done evil in the sight of the Lord. Judges 4:1. When Ehud was dead, the children of Israel again did evil in the sight of the Lord. 6:1. Then the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord. I know I'm sounding like a broken record, but that's what's happening. So the Lord delivered them into the hand of Midian for 7 years. Did the children of Israel learn from their mistakes? No. They went even deeper off the deep end, if you will. In Judges 10, verse 6, then the children of Israel again did evil in the sight of the Lord and served the Baals and the Ashtaroths, the gods of Syria, the gods of Sidon, and the gods of Moab, the gods of the people of Ammon, and the gods of the Philistines. And they forsook the Lord and did not serve him. I mean, they really lost it this time. They were serving all these other gods from all these other countries. And even the gods of the people who had them captive. But did they learn? No. As we just read in 13:1, again, the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord delivered them into the hand of the Philistines for 40 years. Come on. You know, what's going on with the children of Israel that they cannot even remember their God, much less worship him, that they've got to go to these false gods, these false idols. It's just unbelievable. I just don't understand it, but they did. Well, let's talk about the Philistines again, because that's who's ruling over them for the next 40 years. Maybe some of you will recognize this picture. This is one that I had brought up when we talked about David and Goliath. And you can see over here is the picture of David and Goliath. But the Philistines were a sea-going people. They are thought to have been started up here in Crete, the island of Crete, and that's the reason they were seafaring, because in order to get anywhere, they had to have boats. But they were also a warring nation. They loved fighting people. And history doesn't give us a reason why they left their island, but they did. Some historians think that it could have been something, a natural disaster, like a volcano or something natural. Others think that they were invaded themselves and left, but we don't know. But they decided to go off, and you can see all the blue lines to the different areas that they were supposed to have gone to. They did go down into Egypt and fought the Egyptians, who beat them. But instead of making them prisoners or doing, slaving them or whatever, they actually gave them a section of land over here off of what we would call Israel. And if we zoom in on that, again, this is one that I had shown before, but the Philistines took over 5 major cities. On the coast, they took Gaza. You should be familiar with the Gaza Strip. Ashkelon, Ashdod, and Ekron, and then down here in Gath, which is where Goliath had come from. But you can see here the Dead Sea, Jericho, Jerusalem, Bethlehem. This is the Judea, or Judah. So as you see, because of the Philistines being a warring nation, they're always fighting Israel. They're always fighting Judah. And that's where we had talked about before with David and Goliath, that they were going to war with them. So going back to Judges 13, verse 2. Now there was a certain man from Zorah of the family of the Danites. And the Danites is the tribe of Dan that had settled in that area. So they were from the tribe of Dan. His name was Manoah. And his wife, which we never have a name for her, was barren and had no children. And the angel of the Lord appeared to the woman and said to her, Indeed, now you are barren and have borne no children, but you shall conceive and bear a son. Now therefore, please be careful not to drink wine or similar drink, and to eat anything unclean, which is kind of a familiar term that we understand, because it is now stated that women who are pregnant shouldn't drink any kind of wine or any kind of alcohol. But it goes beyond that. Verse 5, For behold, you shall conceive and bear a son, and no razor shall come upon his head, for the child shall be a Nazarite to God from the womb, and he shall begin to deliver Israel out of the hand of the Philistines. So what they're talking about here is what is called the Nazarite vow. And I want to take a few minutes and just view what this vow is. The vow was taken by men and women for a certain amount of time, and during this time, they would dedicate their lives and their bodies in the service of God. But we just read in Judges that Samson didn't have a choice. It wasn't his decision to take this vow. The angel of the Lord said he was going to observe the vow all the days of his life, starting from his birth. So let's read a little bit about this Nazarite vow, and to do that we need to turn to Numbers 6. Starting in verse 1, Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and say to them, when either a man or a woman consecrates an offering to take the vow of a Nazarite, to separate himself from the Lord, he shall separate himself from wine and similar drink, He shall drink neither vinegar made from wine, nor vinegar made with similar drink. Neither shall he drink any grape juice, nor eat fresh grapes or raisins. All the days of his separation he shall eat nothing that is produced by the grapevine, from either the seed to the skin. Nothing. And this is a very peculiar request, not to eat anything from a grape, either from the seed or to the skin. You can't drink anything with grape juice in it. I researched and searched several websites trying to find out a reasoning for this. And nothing, no website, there was nothing on there that stated anything why grapes were forbidden. Any part of the grape, from the seed to the skin, raisins, anything. And the only thing they could come up with was because of fermentation that could possibly affect them. And they were saying even that some grapes, and I think it was if they were left on the vine till they got frozen, that would actually create a yeast in the grape. And so just a normal grape not being fermented for wine could start its own fermentation in the grape itself. And so that was the reason you couldn't touch anything dealing with a grape. Even the seeds, the skin, a dried up raisin, nothing. And so that was the only thing that I could find that dealt with that. Going on, verse 5 of number 6. All the days of the vow of the separation, no razor shall come upon his head or her head, until the days are fulfilled for which he separated himself to the Lord. He shall be holy. Then he shall let the locks of his hair of his head grow. All the days that he separates himself to the Lord, he shall not go near a dead body. He shall not make himself unclean, even for his father or his mother or his brother or his sister, when they die, because his separation to God is of the head. All the days of his separation he shall be holy to the Lord. Most people who took a Nazirite vow did it for a certain amount of time, and this time frame isn't mentioned. Okay? If you read down through the rest of this chapter of number 6, you will see what the man or woman took on the Nazirite vow to separate themselves from God, had to do it from when this time was over, and how they had to go to the priest and make a sacrifice to end this separation, to end this Nazirite vow. Now, I'm not going to go into all of that this morning, so please read the rest of number 6 to get the full picture of what the Nazirite vow was and how it was entailed and what they had to do to separate from it at the end of it. But as we read in Judges 13, verse 4, Manoah's wife had to set herself across and be careful not to drink wine or similar drink and not to eat anything that was unclean. In verse 4, because her son will be born into a Nazirite vow, a way of life, he's going to have to dedicate his life to God. Why? Because her son will have a mission. As we read here in that last verse again, that he will deliver Israel out of the hand of the Philistines. So God had a purpose for Samson. Samson didn't have a say-so in this. Samson didn't have a say-so about taking the Nazirite vow. God has chosen Samson. And he has chosen his mother and father and who he was going to come from and how he was going to live his life. And I think that might have a place into how Samson acts, as we'll see in the next couple of weeks. But we see here that he is born a Nazirite and has to keep that Nazirite vow all the days of his life. Going on in verse 6 of Judges 13. So the woman came and told her husband, saying, a man of God came to me, and his countenance was like the countenance of the angel of God. Very awesome. I like the way she describes that. You know, the angel of God came to me, and he was very awesome. But I did not ask him where he was from, and he did not tell me his name. And he said to me, behold, you shall conceive and bear a son. Now drink no wine or similar drink, nor eat anything unclean, for the child shall be a Nazirite to God from the womb to the day of his death. Then Manoah prayed to the Lord and said, O my Lord, please let the man of God whom you sent come to us again and teach us what we shall do with the child who will be born. And I find this kind of interesting that Manoah would pray to God to send the angel back. I don't know if he just wanted further instructions on how to raise a child in the Nazarite way, or maybe he did not believe his wife, that this was happening because she was barren, and now all of a sudden she's coming out and saying that she's going to bear a son. But Manoah wanted God to send this angel back. Continue on in verse 9. And God listened. God listened to the voice of Manoah, and the angel of God came to the woman again as she was sitting in the field. But Manoah, her husband, was not with her. Then the woman ran in haste and told her husband and said to him, "Look, the man who came to me the other day has just now appeared to me." So Manoah arose and followed his wife. When he came to the man, he said to him, "Are you the man who spoke to this woman?" And he said, "I am." Which I find interesting. I am. Verse 12, Manoah said, "Now let your words come to pass. What will be the boy's rule of life and his work?" Manoah is already being a father. He's wanting to know how to raise his son. What's his way of life going to be? And what's his work? What kind of work is he going to do? Most fathers usually want their son to follow after their footsteps. My dad was a sheet metalsmith, 4 years in the Navy, and when he got out, he still did sheet metalsmith, working for the Navy there in Pensacola at the repair shops. And he also went to Vietnam as a civilian and shot up airplanes over there, repairing the sheet metal. But my dad, he showed me some things dealing with sheet metal, but that was never something that he wanted me to do. Instead, he wanted me to be a preacher, and it took me years to acknowledge that and to become one. But I can see here that Manoah is, how's my boy going to live? What's he going to do? What do we need to do to help him? What's going to be his job? So the angel of the Lord said to Manoah, "Of all that I said to the woman, let her be careful. She may not eat anything that comes from the vine, nor may she drink wine or similar drink, nor eat anything unclean. All that I commanded her, she has to observe." Then Manoah said to the angel of the Lord, "Please let us detain you, and we will prepare a young goat for you." And the angel of the Lord said to Manoah, "Though you detain me, I will not eat your food," because he is an angel. But Manoah doesn't know that. "But if you offer a burnt offering, you must offer it to the Lord." You must offer it to the Lord, not me, the messenger. I don't count. I'm nothing. I'm just the messenger. It is God's work that this is happening. It is through God that your wife is going to bear a son who is barren. It is God's work that your son is going to be doing. So don't offer the sacrifice to me, offer it to the Lord. And then parentheses, for Manoah did not know he was the angel of the Lord. Then Manoah said to the angel of the Lord, "What is your name? That when your words come to pass, we may honor you." He didn't say if they come to pass, but when they come to pass. We want to be able to honor you. So what is your name? Verse 18, and the angel of the Lord said to him, "Why do you ask my name, seeing it is wonderful?" His name is Wonderful. Again, I find this interesting. This is the first time in the Bible that the word wonderful is used, and it is not used that often in the Bible. In fact, there's only used 2 times. I think it was Matthew 1 and Acts 1, where wonderful is used in the New Testament. But why do you ask my name, seeing that it is wonderful? Verse 19, so Manoah took the young goat with the grain offering and offered it upon the rock to the Lord. And he did a wondrous thing while Manoah and his wife looked on. It happened as the flames went up toward heaven from the altar, the angel of the Lord ascended in the flame of the altar. When Manoah and his wife saw this, they fell on their faces to the ground. When the angel of the Lord appeared no more to Manoah and his wife, then Manoah knew that he was the angel of the Lord. And Manoah said to his wife, "We shall surely die, because we have seen God." We're surely going to die now, because we have seen God. Or was it an angel? Continuing on, verse 23. But the wife, being more, I'm not going to go there. But the wife said to him, "If the Lord had desired to kill us, he would not have accepted a burnt offering and a grain offering from our hands, nor would he have shown us all these things, nor would he have told us such things as these at this time." She's being reasonable. We're not going to die because we saw the angel, we saw God. Because otherwise he wouldn't have promised all these things that were going to happen. We would be dead. Verse 24. So the woman bore a son and called his name Samson. And the child grew, and the Lord blessed him. And the Spirit of the Lord began to move upon Samson at Manaah Dan, between Zorah and Eshtaol. The Lord blessed him, and the Spirit of the Lord was with him. The story of Samson has started. Samson is born into the Nazirite vow and will live his life accordingly. Or should we say he should live his life accordingly? Because as you know, as we will read, he doesn't become a devout Nazirite and keep his Nazirite vows through his life. Maybe that was because he didn't make the choice himself to become a Nazirite and to take the vows. It was given to him. We will read more of the story of Samson in the next 3 weeks. And over the next 3 weeks, like I say, we'll cover one chapter a week. So please read Judges 14, or go ahead and read 13 again if you want, but 14, 15, and 16, so you will know what we're going to be studying. A lot of people read the story of Samson, and they get the impression that Samson wasn't a good judge. And we haven't even talked about that this morning. But he was a judge. And we look at his life and we think, well, why was he a judge? You know, he didn't act like a judge. And we'll talk about that more also. We'll read about Samson's failures. He was what we would call today a womanizer when you read these stories. He had a very large weakness for beautiful women. He was the strongest man ever to live, but he was weak when it came to women. He caved in like a sandcastle on the beach, and a small little wave comes up and hits it and washes it away. You know, that's how I kind of compare Samson to be. The question always arises, why did God choose Samson, and what good did Samson do? As we read through the story of Samson over the next 3 weeks, I want us to remember a couple of things. The first is found here in Hebrews 4, verses 11 through 13. Let us therefore be diligent to enter that rest, lest anyone fall according to the same example of disobedience. For the word of God is living and powerful and sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing even to the division of the soul, of spirit, and of joints and marrow, and is a discerner of the thoughts and intents of the heart. And there is no creature hidden from his sight, but all things are naked and open to the eyes of him to whom we must give account. It doesn't matter what our sin is or who we are. God sees everything. Everything that Samson did, even though most of it was public knowledge, God sees it. Anything that we try to hide from God, we can't. God sees it. God knows it. We're only hiding it from ourselves. The second thing I want to point out is just a couple of chapters over in Hebrews. It's what we usually call the faith chapter, because it lists all the men and women throughout the Bible who were strong in their faith. This is where we find the names of Adam's son, Abel, who offered the better sacrifice, of Enoch, who was taken up into heaven and did not taste the sting of death. Of Noah, Abraham, Sarah, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph, of Moses and Rahab. Drop down to verse 33 and we read about these believers who through faith subdued kingdoms, worked righteousness, obtained promises, stopped the mouth of lions, quenched the violence of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, out of weakness were made strong, became valiant in battle, turned to flight the armies of the aliens. If you notice here, I say verse 32, but I started in verse 33. I did that for a reason. Let's go back and read verse 32. And what more shall I say? For the time would fail me to tell of Gideon and Barak and Samson. Think about that. Maybe you've missed reading this part, or you forget about it. That Samson, with all of his failures, with all of the things that he did wrong, he made it into what we call the faith chapter. He's a hero of faith. Samson. And Jephthah, also of David and Samuel and the prophets, who through faith subdued kingdoms, who worked righteousness, obtained promises. I underlined 4 of these because I think they apply to Samson. He stopped the mouth of lions, which we'll read about. Quenched the violence of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, which he did. Out of weakness were made strong, became valiant in battle, and turned to flight the armies of the aliens. So Samson, with all of his womanizing, with all of the things, or all the breaking of the Nazirite vow, he did something right in the sight of God because he is listed as a man of faith. And we're going to study and see how that is and why. Because Samson is not what we always think it is. Usually when we think of Samson, we think of a Bible character whose sin pattern is usually overlooked or ignored or questioned. But he did something right. You know, sometimes I think of it kind of parallel, if I can, with Judas. You know, in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, they were written after the fact. And anytime they mention Judas's name, they say Judas Iscariot, the one who betrayed Jesus. You know, he had that label on him. You never see anything else about Judas except for he handled the money, he took the gold, you know, or the silver, 30 pieces of silver, betrayed our Lord, and that's what he was known for. And the same thing with Samson. I think when we look at him, you know, we see his sins and the things that he did, but we don't see the other side of Samson, because there has to be another side, because he was blessed by the Lord. He was there because of the Lord. He was there to get the children of Israel away from the Philistines. And again, he's in the chapter of faith. So what is it that Samson did? Let's look at it these next 3 weeks and find out. If there's anything that we can do for you, let us know. Maybe you have sinned and you need the prayers of your family to help you to get past that sin, to ask for forgiveness. We're here for that. Maybe you haven't put Christ on, and that is something that you realize that you need to do. The baptistry is ready. You just heard it click off. You know? It reminds us that it's ready. But we're here to help take care of your sin problem. All you have to do